The next item of business is an urgent question. I'd be grateful if those members leaving the chamber were to do so as quietly as possible. And I call Ash Regan.
To ask the Scottish Government, in light of the recent
Ms Regan, sorry, might I just ask you to, if you just make sure that your microphone is directed towards yourself. Thank you very much. If I might ask you to begin again. Thank you.
To ask the Scottish Government, in light of the recent sentencing of a grooming gang in Dundee, what urgent action it will take to establish a national task force to identify and dismantle any exploitation networks targeting children and vulnerable adults in Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Angela Constance.
Presiding Officer, protecting children and vulnerable adults from harm is an absolute priority for the Scottish Government. Police Scotland are, of course, already targeting those who abuse and exploit people and are raising awareness so victims are identified and can get support. The National Human Trafficking Unit of Police Scotland works with national and international partners to take swift and robust action to ensure perpetrators are identified, their activities are disrupted and they are prosecuted, be that individuals or organised crime groups. This cooperation occurs at an operational level and via forums such as the Serious and Organised Crime Task Force and the Police Scotland-led Multi-Agency Tasking and Delivery Board. Tackling sexual exploitation of children is also a key part of the work of the National Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation Strategic Group, which recognises links to other forms of abuse, including child criminal exploitation. And the Child Protection Committee on Contextual Safeguarding also promotes practitioner support to tackle extrafamilial harm.
Ash Regan.
Cabinet Secretary, the Dundee grooming gang case proves that Scotland is not immune to organised grooming gang sexual exploitation, but I agree that Police Scotland does deserve real credit for bringing the perpetrators in Dundee and in Glasgow's Beastie House case to justice. But to truly protect the vulnerable, we must detect the patterns of organised exploitation before the harm happens. Police Scotland FOI and the Government's own response to my recent written question expose fundamental gaps in our data systems. So Police Scotland confirm that they have markers for exploitation, but none for group or for gang-based abuse. The interim Vulnerable Persons Database has an at-risk marker for child sexual exploitation, but it cannot flag when that abuse is organised or networked. So if we can't even identify grooming gang patterns, how then can we dismantle them? So will the Government now commit to an independent data collection audit as part of a national task force to close these dangerous data gaps?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, right now Police Scotland are reviewing previous investigations as well as current cases of the nature that the member is rightly concerned about. And she is also correct to say that there is absolutely never any room for complacency. One of the advantages of having a single police force is that they do have one vulnerability database that is able to feed into local and national child protection procedures and also to make those links with the National Intelligence Database. And of course, Police Scotland also works with the UK-wide National Crime Agency. She has made some very specific points in and around data, and I will raise that with Police Scotland and also the Scottish Police Authority, who I am meeting tomorrow morning.
Ash Regan.
Cabinet Secretary for that commitment. Tackling exploitation means tackling the demand that fuels it. So every grooming network, every trafficking chain exists because there is a market. And that market is sustained by the unchallenged demand to buy sex. And if Scotland is to protect our most vulnerable women and children, we can't just accept that people are vulnerable from poverty, from coercion, from addiction and then grooming. We must target the demand that drives the profits from their exploitation, because people are not products to be traded. victims trapped in cycles of exploitation across organised crime, online exploitation and prostitution. We need to tackle the root cause through a clear legal deterrent to make the purchase of sex a crime. So will the government commit to criminalising sex buying through my Unbuyable Bill to reduce that demand and dismantle the market for these heinous exploitation networks across Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, it is important that we tackle the demand for the sexual exploitation of women and vulnerable adults, and the member is correct to make that link between human trafficking and prostitution. I do know that the member will be familiar with Operation Begonia, which has taken a victim-centred, trauma-informed approach in terms of recognising the women involved in prostitution as victims of exploitation and the importance of signposting them to appropriate support organisations, while also challenging and deterring men's demand. It is important that with any Member's Bill that the Government gives it full and very careful consideration. I am very conscious of where the Member's Bill is currently at in terms of its committee stage, and I will look with interest in terms of the deliberations made by committee members. But our focus will be informed not just by committee but by the implementation of Operation Begonia. And the member might also be interested to know that the next phase of our work with Police Scotland is very much to focus on tackling the online aspects of commercial sexual exploitation.
Thank you. Joe Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, I too welcome the efforts of Police Scotland in bringing the perpetrators to justice and the courage and fortitude of the victims during this case. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary to set out what support is offered to victims of such heinous crimes during and after criminal trials?
Cabinet Secretary.
Officer, the Scottish Government is identifying more victims and ensuring that more victims of human trafficking are indeed getting the support that they require. And I too also thank all of those in the justice system who have brought this case to a conclusion and agree with Mr Fitzpatrick that the victims have shown enormous bravery for coming forward. In particular, in terms of funding, I want to highlight that we are providing necessary assistance for those to begin rebuilding their lives, and we are providing £32 million between 2025 and 27 to 23 organisations through the Victim-Centred Approach Fund, which includes support for victims of human trafficking and exploitation. And another example is that we have embedded 2 victim navigators into the National Human Trafficking Unit to assist Police Scotland in identifying and supporting victims of trafficking and exploitation to ensure that victims are treated with fairness and compassion from that very point of identification, and they are providing ongoing support for those in this particular case. There is other support, of course, available through the National Health Service and also the Bairnshoes programme as well.
Pauline McNeill.
Cabinet Secretary is aware that 5 Romanian criminals serving long sentences, and rightly so, with the victims were as young as 16 and 30. I wanted to ask the Cabinet Secretary, given what she said previously in relation to early release of prisoners, about the complicated question of foreign nationals serving time in Scottish jails, can I have her assurance that these criminals will serve their full sentence in a Scottish jail as rightly should?
Presiding Officer, I do want to reassure the member on 2 fronts. Police Scotland are, of course, in close contact with the criminal justice system in Romania. In terms of any early release or return of foreign nationals to their own jurisdiction. Right now, that is restricted to short-term prisoners under very specific restrictions, and there are, of course, statutory exclusions. The member will of course be well aware that the return and deportation of foreign nationals is an issue with the Home Office, and where the Scottish Prison Service fits into this is that they do of course cooperate with the Home Office, but that is in and around the transfer of prisoners. But there is nonetheless in statute a scheme to facilitate that within Scottish legislation, and I will be bringing forward, as she perhaps recalls, a further statutory instrument in this regard to enable more certain groups of foreign nationals to perhaps return earlier to their own country, but that is very specific to those serving shorter sentences as opposed to hefty long-term custodial ones. Those matters are about extradition and treaty-by-treaty arrangements country to country.
Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I tried to amend the Victims Bill to set up a Scottish grooming gangs inquiry, but SNP and Green MSPs voted against that amendment, so it fell. Now, in light of this shocking case, and having had a chance to reflect...
Mr. Kerr.
In light of this shocking case, and having had a chance to reflect on the huge disappointment expressed by so many after that vote, does the Cabinet Secretary now think rejecting the inquiry was a missed opportunity, and to enable lessons to be learned and to prevent future abuse, will she now order a Scottish grooming gangs inquiry?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I think it's really important that we focus on the facts, and as Mr Kerr knows, because I specifically wrote to him on this matter, that the Victims Witness and Justice Reform Bill was not the right route. As he well knows, the Government has always been very clear that we are prepared to give every consideration to a grooming gangs inquiry if that is assessed a necessity. But right now, as in right now, Police Scotland are actively involved in reviewing investigations. Right now, the Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation National Group is working with Police Scotland and people like Professor Alexis Jay, and right now are reviewing the very important work done by Baroness Casey in her audit. And the facts are what Mr Kerr proposed would certainly not be anomalous or the same as a national inquiry. What his amendment proposed was for the Victims and Witness Commissioner, who is still to be established, still to be recruited, to do some research at some point further down the line. And if there is any reflection that should be done, it should be done by Mr Kerr, who has been completely disingenuous about the integrity of the majority of this Parliament, and has played politics with child abuse, and has dangerously gaslit other members of this Parliament, and that is a disgrace.
Michael Mara. Let's hear Mr Mara.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I also thank the police officers who have investigated what is an absolutely heinous crime. They have ruthlessly preyed on the weak, entrapping and abusing them with lifelong consequences. Presiding Officer, also, since sentencing, the online hard right have been trying to link this incident to others involving migrants in Dundee, painting a picture of a broad criminal conspiracy tied together by race. And we should all be clear, I believe, that they do so without evidence, without concern for victims and without care for my city. The question posed on systematic grooming should be fully answered by the Government. So I would ask what evidence they have seen, what questions they are asking of Police Scotland, and how they will update Parliament on those matters. And does the Cabinet Secretary recognise that tackling these crimes is all the harder in Dundee, given that the local frontline police numbers have been reduced by 71 officers in recent years?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, let me start by agreeing wholeheartedly with the first part of Mr Mara's question. There are people in this country associated with the hard right, particularly in communities where there are vulnerability and high levels of poverty, where they are extracting and exploiting the pain that members of our society are living, whether they are new Scots or indeed old Scots born and bred in Scotland, and he is right to say that we need to stand united against that. In terms of the answers about how we need to be really probing deeply, there is no room for complacency. There's never any room for Scottish exceptionalism when it comes to the protection of vulnerable adults and our children. I would point to the work that we've been able to do as a result of the Human Trafficking Act that passed in this Parliament unanimously in 2015, and I do wonder, Mr Mara, whether an act of this nature today would pass unanimously, but I'm sure many of us will recall the passing of that legislation, and we're very proud to support it. Other legislation that is crucial in this area is the Adult Support and Protection legislation, and there are further developments that the Victims Minister will bring forward in terms of that duty to notify. Ministers have the power to place a duty on public services where they come across or encounter someone who they believe to be a victim of human trafficking, that they will have to report that. And I hope, in combination with my answers given to Ms Regan and other members, that demonstrates that we are very serious about tackling those who seek to harm and control and exploit.
And Pam Gossel.
Presiding Officer, I stood in this chamber at the beginning of 2025 calling on the Scottish Government to take action against grooming gangs. It's almost 2026 and we have yet to see any progress from this government. However, SNP ministers refuse to even say the words grooming gangs. So, in a yes or no answer, does the Cabinet Secretary agree that Scotland is facing a grooming gangs problem?
Cabinet Secretary.
I wonder if Ms Gossel would answer the question yes or no, whether she has listened to any of the answers that stood here and given to other members of this Parliament tonight at this hour.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I have always accepted is that there are people in this country who seek to harm children and vulnerable adults. And all I want to do at the end of the day is maximise our resources, our will and our opportunities to detect, deter and disrupt such heinous behaviour. And we have seen this week a success in our criminal justice system that has brought people to justice.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That concludes the urgent question and our business for this evening, and I close this meeting.